2 centuries ago, Qatar was known mostly for its export of pearls. This reputation would persist as the Gulf region grew in importance, even though Qatar's pearl trade shrank from foreign competition at the beginning of the 20th century. However, as Qatar's pearls declined in value, they were replaced by an infinitely more important resource: oil. Unbeknownst to the nation's people for thousands of years, the Qatar Peninsula sat atop a seemingly endless ocean of oil. The untapped resource would be used as a way to help Qatar carve out a new future for itself, a future beyond the wildest imaginations of its founders. With assistance from Western oil companies, Qataris got to work, and oil became a major focus within the economy. The 1950s witnessed major expansion of government services and the creation of a modern welfare state.
The first contacts between Americans and Qataris came, like it did with all the other countries in the region, with the activities of American oil companies. The early part of the 20th century, immediately after the end of World War I, and then Sheikh Abdullah knew about an American mission hospital in Bahrain and approached him through intermediaries, and the response was almost immediate. And the American mission in Bahrain established a mission hospital in Qatar. The hospital itself was literally the first medical facility in the Qatari Peninsula. It was properly manned. It was you're going from zero to, in terms of the time, you're going from 0 to 100 almost overnight. That was the first time the Qatari people actually encountered what Americans could do.
In 1971, Qatar gained its full independence, though the following decade was one of great regional upheaval. It was also a time of great prosperity. The turmoil of the 1970s sharply increased oil prices, making Qatar one of the richest nations in the world. Relations between Qatar and the United States continued to expand throughout the 1970s and 1980s. It dramatically improved in 1991, when Qatar played an important role in the US-led liberation of Kuwait from Saddam Hussein's invasion. Meanwhile, the US-Qatar relationship deepened in the mid-1990s, after construction began on the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where American soldiers are currently stationed. Al Udeid later played a critical role in the war on terror and the fight against ISIS, and is today the hub of America's operations in the Middle East.
The first time that I went to Doha was when I was the executive officer for the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs in the late 1990s. I then went back after the war in Iraq started, I think when I was a 3-star general, when the U.S. Central Command Forward Headquarters was in Camp Asaliya, and then I visited many, many more times after that as the commander of the multinational force in Iraq, and then obviously as the commander of U.S. Central Command. When we shifted the Forward Headquarters from Camp Asaliya to Al Udeid, a construction project that was made possible, frankly, by a very generous support donation from Qatar. Qatar is in a very geostrategically significant and sensitive location. It has relationships with a lot of countries that we have keen interest in. It sometimes has better relationships with them than we do. And that can be useful for us. It can provide insights that we might not necessarily get.
I can assure you that we have a day-to-day cooperation. Where I stand here today, Al Udeid, we have almost day-to-day task with our colleagues and partner, the United States, men and women who works in Qatar. It goes long back. Qatar is a trustworthy partner to the United States, and we've been working hand in hand for the past 50 years now. We are enjoying this relation. We are working together to cement it and to elevate it to the level which both countries and both people of the countries would like to see between two strategical partners.
El Udeid Air Base is one of the most significant, important, largest bases we have in the world. And I think the importance of that base and the defense strategies that have emulated out of that base and the strength of the relationship between Qatar and the United States has made it more and more important each year. Certainly the area, the Middle East, is a volatile, unpredictable, dangerous place. And to have that base and those resources there and that partnership with Qatar is just almost incalculably important. It gives us great abilities that we wouldn't otherwise have, to have that base there with more reach, and as I said earlier, a tremendous force projection forward outside the United States. So critically important relationship, the defense relationship.
We've seen with the collapse in Afghanistan how absolutely essential Al Udeid is to frankly U.S. operations. But we saw that before. I mean, the United States couldn't have operated in either Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere else in the region without Al Udeid.
The world before the 1990s did not view liquefied natural gas, or LNG, as a viable technology. In 1994, however, Qatar made pioneering investments in LNG, positioning it to become the sector's market maker. The energy sector was transformed by the Qatari-American partnership, particularly in natural gas since the 1990s, after Mobil Oil and the Qatari government began developing the North Dome field. Qatar's decision to make major investments in the country's natural gas infrastructure has strengthened its economic significance.
What we have achieved now is more than $200 billion of economic and investment relation between both countries. And recently also Qatar Investment Authority have been very active in the US market. More than $45 billion invested by QIA, and US has been the largest target for Qatar Investment Authority in terms of investments, and we've been really very happy with this investment, getting the right commercial returns as well as the support from the US for these investments. Looking forward, we see this to continue. We see this relationship to continue, and we see it expanding into all sectors. It's not only specific to one sector, and we see it a win-win relationship for both countries.
After I became Treasury Secretary, I visited the region. Qatar was one of the important partners in the region, and my trip was really focused on both economic issues and combating terrorist financing in the region. Clearly, Qatar has become a major provider of energy, particularly LNG, a very large part of the world's LNG. There was a big focus on energy and US businesses doing business in Qatar. And similarly, Qatar has been a long-term investor in the US, and the opportunity for Qatar to invest in the US, and particularly we were very focused on investments that led to job creation.
We can see, after 50 years, what the relationship between Qatar and America is. It's improved a lot in every field, in military, education, investment, energy, socially. We invest also with ExxonMobil, Shell in Brazil, in Cyprus, in Mexico, in Africa with Total. So if you can't see how now, when we cooperate with ExxonMobil outside of Qatar.
Obviously the North Field being a huge resource and the potential it had and that has played out to be a major source of energy supply to so many parts of the world, a cleaner source of energy supply, natural gas, through liquefied natural gas. But what really allowed us to engage and ultimately be successful was the recognition that the country first was going to honor its agreements. Rule of law was important in the country, contract sanctity was important, and as I said, good faith dealings.
This is a strategic partnership. It's established to stay, and to stay for forever. We shared a lot of value together between us and the US, and we can utilize what we have built together to even enhance it further, down the road, and to become or to stay or continue to be the most strategic partner in the region. On the FDI level, maybe the US is the biggest investor today in Qatar. The investment of the state of Qatar, or QI in general, in America, it's vary from different sectors.
I've lived all over the world, and a huge drag on economic activity and a huge drag on foreign investment is corruption. And Qatar is largely free of corruption. And that leaves lots of good opportunities for American companies. And certainly the Ministry of Commerce and other institutions in Qatar have been very welcoming to small and medium-sized businesses. So that also provides a really good opportunity for American companies.
The winner to organize the 2022 FIFA World Cup is Qatar.
I think over the last 10 years, we've also looked towards American expertise, American experience, American innovation in a lot of areas, and helping us to deliver the first World Cup in 2022. So a number of different companies have helped us out, whether it was in terms of construction companies, design consultants, program management, and also more of the, let's say, softer element or more of the innovation element side.
Qatari investments in the US not only increase the visibility of Qatar, both in humanitarian ways, as with the response to Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Harvey, but also just in the everyday visibility of places like City Center in Washington, D.C., for example, which has been regenerated. We see urban regeneration, we see investment in energy.
Before and immediately after Qatar's independence, the country lacked a system of higher education, and wealthy citizens often sent their children abroad for study. By the 1970s, an increasing number of these students had begun to study in America. The influence of American education on Qatar soon led to a stronger relationship between the two countries, in which American experts helped to plan a university system for Qatar that was soon taken up by other countries in the Gulf. The most notable achievement from this partnership was the creation of Education City, a consortium of 6 American universities' affiliate branches in Qatar. During the late 1990s, these schools strengthened geopolitical, cultural, and humanitarian relations between the two countries and provided U.S. universities with an export model that was later copied in other areas.
The biggest project or the biggest relationship in terms of education started in the mid-90s. At that time, there was a big reform in the education system in Qatar. And we started thinking about establishing high quality educational system, in particular at the university level. So during the search, we always came up who is in the high list. I mean, in the world ranking, in all kind of educational measures, it was the American universities, the top American universities. During our journey, when we were looking for partner and we visited so many American universities, I think they believe in our vision and they believe what we are trying to do. And also they felt that we are a trustworthy partner. We are a small country, but we have secure, safe, we have leadership who are forward-looking and forward-thinking.
Our institutions of higher education also share a strong, unique relationship. Every year, the United States welcomes thousands of Qatari students to our schools, and Doha's Education City is home to 6 American universities. The connection is personal for my family. I was honored to deliver the commencement address for the very first graduating class of Georgetown University's Qatar campus in 2009.
Education City, when it was created, I think was truly innovative on the part of Qatar. First, because they wanted to Qatar wanted to accelerate the process of educating more Qataris and to build a university from ground up. So I think it's been important not just to the development of education in Qatar, but it's allowed Qatar to take that again outside of the country and beyond, but provide opportunities regionally to young people to be exposed to university educational curriculum from the United States in a collaborative way.
The fact that the leadership was investing in education meant that they were investing in human resources, in the human potential, in the human development of Arab students all across the region. And I think 15 years of this investment has now borne results. We've seen a creation of long-term partnerships with a whole host of US universities.
For Xavier especially, Qatar has been a great partner and friend, especially after we had the disastrous Hurricane Katrina that not only flooded the city of New Orleans, but also devastated much of Xavier's infrastructure. It was Qatar which came very quickly to help us restore, especially our pharmacy program, and to continue a tradition of educating the majority of African American physicians, of American pharmacists in this country. The leading institution for producing African American pharmacists in this country has been Xavier.
Salam alaikum. 50 years ago, United States Ambassador William Stolfus presented his credentials to the government of Qatar, initiating the diplomatic relationship between our two countries. In the time since, that relationship has steadily grown stronger, spanning shared security and economic interests, cooperation on regional challenges, and deepening ties between our people. Qatar has generously hosted U.S. forces at Al Udeid Air Base since 1996, where Qataris and Americans continue to train together, provided aid to Americans after Hurricanes Katrina and Harvey, and so much more.
Qatar is a good friend and reliable and capable partner, and I'm notifying Congress that I will designate Qatar as a major non-NATO ally to reflect the importance of our relationship. I think it's long overdue.
The long history of the relationship between Qatar and the United States helped both nations to develop a stronger understanding towards one another so as to ensure future mutually beneficial ties. Both Qataris and Americans wish and work for a more prosperous time ahead and for peace, stability, and freedom throughout the world.
For 5 decades, the United States and Qatar have built a strong strategic relationship. Indeed, America is grateful to Qatar for hosting our brave men and women in uniform at Al Udeid Air Force Base, which I have had the privilege to visit many times. Our scientists and entrepreneurs are working to combat the climate crisis, living up to our nation's shared commitment to reduce carbon pollution, develop green technologies, and preserve our planet for generations to come.
The links and the bridges we have established with the right people and the right sectors in the U.S. helps us to achieve this in the future. Unfortunately, maybe I will not be here for the next 50 years to talk about it again, about the achieve, but I'm sure my children and our grandchildren, will be talking more and more about this achievement and how this relationship has grown up to become one of the most strategic ties.
Today, we're signing 2 new agreements that reflect our deepening collaboration on Afghanistan. The first establishes Qatar as the United States protecting power in Afghanistan. Qatar will establish a U.S. interest section within its embassy in Afghanistan to provide certain consular services and monitor the condition and security of U.S. diplomatic facilities in Afghanistan. The second agreement formalizes our partnership with Qatar to facilitate the travel of Afghans with U.S. special immigrant visas, a role that it's already been playing in many instances, and serve as a transit point for eligible Afghans as they complete their application process.
Our diplomatic relationship with Qatar is important. More and more economic viability between our two countries. More and more exchanges between our two countries. U.S. universities in Doha. So I see that this relationship just getting stronger.
I think Qatar has settled into a very comfortable relationship with the United States and the United States with Qatar. We know each other much better than we did 50 years ago.
I think the United States needs a country like Qatar that can act as an interlocutor, act as a facilitator of dialogue, that can act in soft power humanitarian ways in which many of the other countries in the Gulf cannot, which can bring people together and can act as a hub for education and healthcare for a much wider region.
Half a century of mutual success, half a century of ambitious projects that have been jointly put together and succeeded on all different fronts. The World Cup, I believe, though, will be probably the most exciting one. I apologize for everybody else that's done a lot of other projects, but I do believe 2022 leading into 2026 will probably be one of the most successful and more exciting partnerships between us.
The reason Qatar is different, and it's true with all countries, quite frankly, those that do really well as those who don't do so well, it's all about the leadership. And it's the tone that the leadership sets. I think it is always vitally important that leaders of both our countries never take anything for granted and never assume that this will just continue of its own. It always takes work,